Great to see people joining. Hi, everybody. This is Caroline Hunter with AmeriEstate Legal Plan. And, welcome to our What is a Living Trust and Why You Might Need One in Arizona webinar. We've got some participants joining us. So I'm just going to go over a couple things right now. I'll be introducing Michelle Johnson in just a moment, Michelle Reese Johnson, and then we've got Joe Udall here to help you. And what I like to know is, while we're waiting for people to join, is how'd you hear about us? Are you an existing client? Did you see us on Facebook, LinkedIn? Did you get one of our direct mail flyers? So, or an email? So if you could go ahead and maybe in the chat, just mention how'd you hear about us, that would be great. Something else I'd love to know too is, what are your hobbies? Like, what are some of your favorite pastimes and hobbies? That's always a good icebreaker question. And at the end of our webinar, Michelle is going to be talking about an amazing offer that we have. And in the chat box, I've put the link. There'll be a phone number that you can call to schedule an appointment. And then in the chat, like I said, there is a link that you can click and also schedule an appointment. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go ahead and introduce Michelle Reese Johnson, and then she's going to introduce Joe Udall, who is our attorney in Arizona. And I'm also going to go ahead and share our screen, so you'll be able to see that in just a moment. Just give me one moment. Perfect. Great. All right. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Michelle Reese Johnson. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline, for that introduction. I'm Michelle Reese Johnson, VP of Marketing and Sales with AmeriEstate. I'm so glad to be here with the Arizonians. We call you the Zonies out here in California. I love Arizona, everything about Arizona, except for the heat, but that's most people's opinion as well. It's a beautiful, beautiful state, and a state that is underserved when it comes to estate planning. I know this for a fact because I see a lot of clients that end up, or we get calls that somebody passed away and didn't set up a estate plan. And then the kids are calling like, what do we do now? And then I am like, okay, well, let's refer you to a probate attorney. So I think the biggest factor in most people not getting an estate plan is they just don't have the information and the knowledge they need to make an informed decision. So today we're going to talk about what is a living trust and why you might need one, because not everybody needs a living trust, but we're going to go into more detail about why you might need one. And if you're on the seminar, or this Zoominar, I call it, you're going to find out if a living trust is going to be the right fit for you. And the next thing I'm going to talk about is if a living trust is right for you, what are the processes and procedures involved for you to get one started for yourself? A little background about AmeriEstate. We've been doing estate planning in Arizona for at least 20 years now. And Joe Udall, who is our lead attorney in Arizona. Hi, Joe. Welcome.
Hello. Good morning, everyone.
So great to have you here, Joe. It's not often that when people do Zoominars, webinars, or even in-person seminars that the attorney, they get to actually meet the attorney they're going to speak to. So I'm so happy to have you here today. And I wanted to start off with a little bit about AmeriEstate and how we came to be, and talk about how we are structured so you understand why we do what we do and how we do it, and why we can bring an estate plan to you at a fixed affordable price, which is really hard to do, right, Joe? Because most attorneys, if you're going to go directly to an attorney, they have to charge you by the hour. That's most of the time because they're spending a lot of time with you, educating you, back and forth phone calls, meeting you personally in the office, signing your documents, taking those follow-up calls, crafting the right plan for you. And that's all time taken away from the attorney. So when AmeriEstate formed, the owner and CEO of AmeriEstate, Greg Reese, 25 years ago, saw a real need for people who are middle America to set up an estate plan that it's not going to break the bank for them. So he created a legal plan. So that is why we are called AmeriEstate Legal Plan. And the reason for that also is because we do this as a team approach. So a lot of the busy work is taken away from Joe. He doesn't have to educate you. He doesn't have to help you figure out who's going to be your trustees and explain reasons why and talk to you think about who your beneficiaries are going to be. We're going to do all that heavy lifting up front. Joe is not going to be involved in that process. But when it's time and you have your thoughts together and we actually take your application, we're going to get that over to Joe and he's going to call you on the phone and talk to you about and do your legal consultation and craft it so it's perfectly fit for your family's needs. So we're taking a lot of the busy work away from Joe and he's focused on the legal advice for you and instructing us how he wants your documents drafted. So that's why we have formed a legal plan so we can work in a team environment. And with that legal plan, if you decide to go ahead and start your estate plan with us today, you are going to be part of the legal plan for a year. It's all included in the great price I'm going to talk to you about at the end of the seminar. And that is going to allow you, once you set up your trust document, if you need to change anything about your trust, you can give us a call and let us know what your updates are. We're going to make those changes to your trust for you as part of that legal plan. You don't need to go because if you call Joe, he's going to charge you about probably $400 an hour, right? You're going to call us, and if it's a legal question consultation, we're going to go ahead and do those things for free as part of the legal plan. And also in the legal plan, if you need any attorney referrals, if something's going on in your life that maybe you have a property in another state and you need to get some attorney to assist you, we just give us a call and we're going to put you in touch with an attorney for a free legal consultation and a 25% discount off their hourly rate. We also want to make sure as part of being a member of the legal plan that you're not afraid to call. We want you to know that we are here for you for phone calls, questions, guidance, whatever it is. So when you pick up that phone and call, you're not going to be billed. Okay, that's part of being a member in the legal plan. So those are just some kind of high level things that are included in the legal plan. And I wanted to stress that because we are very, very unique in how we're set up. And this model has worked tremendously for 25 years. So just know that whenever you do work with AmeriEstate, you're a legal plan member. And then every year thereafter, we invite you to rejoin in the membership, which works out to be $150 a year. And you get so many other services within that. It's not a mandatory thing, but of course, we would hope that you would want to rejoin in the legal plan to continue the services that we will provide for you. So the next thing I also wanted to talk about, we just don't do estate planning and living trusts. Our office also helps with estate administration. So we're here for your successor trustees and your beneficiaries should you become incapacitated or when you pass away. So that's our estate administration. We also handle incapacity. So if your loved ones or maybe your husband or somebody has slipped and fallen, or maybe they're in a home now and they need some papers so you can manage their affairs. We do that incapacity planning just to give you the right documents you need to approach the banks to maybe sell a house and all that. We also assist with your special needs children. So if you have special needs beneficiaries, children's, if that is a very, very important part of why a living trust is is probably the best structure for you in estate planning. We can assist with that. If you need to set up some corporations, LLCs, we're here for you on that part. We have an awful lot of clients that maybe have a sole proprietorship, and probably a good idea to maybe incorporate or do an LLC. Or a lot of clients have lots of real estate right now, and that real estate isn't totally protected if there's lawsuits and litigation. So maybe setting up an LLC for real estate would be a good idea. Give us a call, we can talk about it. And also, when we see our clients aging or their parents aging, part of what we assist with is helping you understand that next step when mom needs to maybe go into a nursing home. How can you help pay for that? Things like that. So just know we're here for every stage of life. And we just don't do estate plan, living trust. We do powers of attorney, will packages, living trust, and the other things I also talked about. So a little bit about our process. If you decide to give us a call and chat a little bit about, hey, I think a living trust might be a good idea for me, this is how the process will work. You're going to give us a call. You're going to talk to one of our in-house trust advisors. They're going to talk to you about an estate plan and ask you some questions. And at that point, they're going to say, you know what, I think a living trust might be the best avenue for you, because you have certain types of assets that will go through probate if you don't have a living trust, or you have minor children, or you have special needs children, or you have a business. There's triggers that make it the smart thing to do to set up an estate plan. So once you decide that, maybe you decide you just need a will package because you don't have certain types of assets. And then after that, we're going to take your information and we're going to put it on an application that will then be sent over to Joe. After that, Joe is going to give you a phone call. So you're not going to walk into his office, because we can handle anything you need in the entire state of Arizona. Joe is physically located in Mesa, Arizona, but you might be over at Lake Havasu or, up in Flagstaff. So just know that you don't need to go see the attorney. That is not how AmeriEstate is structured. And that's also a reason why we're able to bring a price to you that's affordable, that you will want to get it done, and it won't break the bank. The next thing is, when it comes time after you've had your legal consultation with Joe, he's going to instruct AmeriEstate how to draft your documents. So we're going to draft your documents, and we're going to bring them to you in our portfolio, which is up here on the shelf. You'll see how thick it is because there's a lot of stuff in there. And we're going to assign a notary who's trained in notarizing our documents. It's kind of like signing more loan documents, but this is probably the most important document you can have in your life, is a revocable living trust and or estate plan. The notary is going to come out to see you to sign, notarize, and make sure your houses are retitled and signed into your trust. And then once that's done, those property deeds will come to us, so we will handle all the recordings of your properties. So a little bit about that. We do not believe in just preparing documents. Every single client must speak to an attorney. So I wanted to talk to you in the next few slides. We're going to go into a little bit more about why just using a document preparer, which are all over Arizona, I know who they are, and or doing it yourself. And Joe's going to chime in on that too. But the next thing I want to talk about is there are really only 3 ways to set up or manage your estate while you're here on this earth. Only 3 ways. The first way is the do nothing way. Like, you're just not going to do anything and then you pass away. So Joe, I'd like you to chime in on this a little bit and talk to us about what happens when people don't do anything.
If you don't do anything, the state of Arizona or the state you live in has a set of rules as to who gets your assets. And those rules are followed by a court proceeding that has to be started, a probate court proceeding, where the court will look at the law, look at your family situation, and give it to the right people. For example, if I am married to a second relationship and I have one child from a prior relationship. I'm currently married with 3 children with my current wife, and I die without a will, half of my assets goes to my first child, who's not her child. The other half would go to her, which almost always is not what people want, especially if my second relationship has been for 20 or 30 years. So doing nothing means that what's going to happen will be whatever the laws dictate. Sometimes there's some ambiguity about how that happens, and all of that has to be determined typically by somebody going to court, maybe having a fight in court over who gets what and who's in charge, where doing nothing is really just a bad idea almost always.
Yeah, and I think most people have in the back of their mind that I know I need to do something. And they put it off. Life is busy. We're busy and we don't know who to talk to, where to go. We're afraid to call somebody direct because once we go into their big office, we don't know what the fee is going to be. So it's kind of a scary thing to start that process. So I think AmeriEstate makes it really easy that you can call. We'll talk about it, quote you up front, and then you will know exactly what to expect and what the fees will be. Now, the do nothing plan is probably the most popular plan, right? Because we see most people don't really do anything. But I do see people telling me they do wills. They have their will. So tell me a little bit about that next step, just doing a will. What are the pitfalls or the pros and cons about just having a will or a will package? A will package includes powers of attorney as well. So talk to us a little bit about that, Joe.
Okay, so a will package is much better than doing nothing because it gives me a chance to say, number one, with the will, who gets my assets. So if I have my son, who's a stepson from my wife, I can say that everything goes to my wife, and then we divide it 4 ways if she dies. So I can fix who gets it. I also can say who's going to be in charge when I'm dead. Historically, that person is called the executor, although in most states now, including Arizona, the legal name is personal representative. That's who gets to go to court, recognized by the court to be the one that makes decisions, sells the asset, gives it to the right people. But with a will by itself, you're still going to court. That doesn't avoid the need to have a judge be involved and have somebody be appointed and have a very public proceeding. Usually with a will, people will also do powers of attorney. Powers of attorneys are critical because they will say, while I'm alive, who can make decisions for me? There's typically a financial power of attorney, a medical power of attorney, and a mental health care power of attorney, where I'm saying, who can make decisions if I'm not able to make them myself? And those will avoid the need for a guardianship or a conservatorship to be appointed. So a will is better than nothing, although it's clearly not the optimal way to approach it because of the fees and costs and some of the ambiguity. And I think we'll get into a little bit more about if you use a document prep person or do it yourself, you can really screw things up.
Right. Yeah. I think that, a lot, I say, even if you don't have a will, the minimum thing every adult should have are their powers of attorney, period. Once you become an adult, you're 18, right? If you don't have powers of attorney set up in place and you become incapacitated, then that really becomes a problem. So minimum, get powers of attorney. Next step, have a will, but we have a better option. And this is where people, I hear it all the time. I have my will, I'm good. And we don't need to set up a living trust. So let's talk about why a living trust is better, Joe, and the triggers or the reasons why people should consider a living trust based on, is it their assets? Is it the value of the estate? Tell us a little bit more about that.
A lot of different things go into it and there are benefits from it. Let me talk about a couple of circumstances where someone should absolutely have it. If you have minor children, or the beneficiaries are potentially going to be minors, like my grandchildren. Most people say my assets go to my children, and if my children die, their share goes to their children, not to my daughter or son-in-law. If it's going to a minor or somebody who's under the age of 25 or so, a trust is really helpful because it creates a responsible adult who can make sure that that money, those funds, are used for the benefit of my child or grandchild, for their health, education, welfare, in ways that hopefully will avoid have them get those assets being wasted or used for, a bad thing like a drug addiction or just wasted. A trust is also really helpful if you have significant assets, if you have several pieces of real property, if you have a complicated set of assets or a complicated arrangement with your spouse with a blended family, because a trust, you create the trust and then you get everything titled into it, which is one round of organizing. And then if you change your mind as to percentages or who's in charge, then you're just amending the trust without having to follow up and change beneficiary designations or the ownership of accounts. And the trust is also really protective of my beneficiaries from their creditors, from their spouse if they get divorced, from the government if they have a stroke or an illness or an accident where the government is stepping in and paying for things. We don't want an inheritance from mom and dad or grandma and grandpa to disqualify me from, or my child from receiving significant government assistance through Medicaid. And it's also just super protective. It's bulletproof protection for those beneficiaries that their creditors and their spouse or other people can't get at it.
Oh my gosh, so many good points. I'm telling you, a trust, most people, I would say 95% of the people need a trust who have at least a house. If you have a home and that's the only thing you have, you need a trust.
Yeah, and a trust is also administered more privately. If I don't have a trust, somebody's got to go to court to be appointed as the personal representative, the executor. That's a public lawsuit. All of my potential heirs and creditors all have to receive notice. All the creditors have to be paid, even those that we don't necessarily agree with. Where with a trust, you title your house into the trust. It's a private document between me, my trustees, and my beneficiaries, that it all gets managed in a way that is much more confidential, and the public doesn't need to know.
Yeah, really good point, because if you pass away with just a will, guess what? Everything is advertised in the paper and the snoops come out to see what you had. The neighbor's going to look and say, oh, I want to see what Betty had over there. What's in her portfolio? Ooh, Betty was kind of, had a lot of stuff. So, that's where people start coming out of the woodwork too. So another thing I wanted to talk about, Joe, is tell us a little bit about the snowbirds. We love the snowbirds, right? They come and take over Arizona in the wintertime, right? And these people have property, but they're coming from another state. Touch on that a little bit. And if people who maybe live in another state and have another home, but they also have a home in Arizona, can they set up their trust in Arizona?
Absolutely, they can. Sometimes, often they want to, other times they don't. There are, that's part of the discussion that I have with people. If you're in Arizona approximately half the year, maybe a little less, residency is a state of mind as the law works. I kind of get to choose where I'm a resident of. Sometimes you can look at tax rates in Arizona versus other states. We're usually reasonably competitive, although not with all states. We are what is called a community property state, like California and about 11 other states, in that any money that I earn, my wife has a 1/2 interest in. Any money she earns, I have a 1/2 interest in. But the critical thing is that upon my death, all of our assets get stepped up from what we paid to the fair market value as of the date of my death. So if my wife sells stock, she doesn't have to pay any capital gains. So sometimes clients will come from the Midwest, where they each had their own trust, because that's how it's done. They each inherited, a farm from their parents and grandparents, and they will do an agreement to treat it as community property so that when one of the spouses dies, they get a step up in basis, which can be a huge tax benefit.
That's awesome.
So there's all kinds of things you can do. Maybe you don't want to do it in Arizona. Maybe you do. AmeriEstate can talk through that with them. I also talk through that with them. There's not, it does depend on your situation, which is why having an attorney be in the mix is a really helpful thing so that you get some good advice.
Right. So let's talk about, because I know, Joe, we have to get you out of here in a couple minutes. I want to talk about the do-it-yourself trust and the pitfalls that happen. I do see people, like I talked before, they're just going on the internet and filling in the blanks. Tell me a little bit about what you see going on there and why that's not a great idea.
Well, one of the difficult things is that number one, they can't provide legal advice. And they say that as you're filling out the forms, that we're not providing you legal advice, we're just doing what you tell us to do, which is not very helpful, because many of my clients have really important questions like, who do we choose to be our trustee or the executor? How do we decide between these different people? Also, how do we divide everything up? Sometimes it's clear because they have 4 kids and everything's good and they're going to divide it equally. But many times they've given 1 or 2 children a lot more financial help. Therefore, they want to give the others a little bit to equalize that, or they're not very close with one of their children, or one of their children has cut them out of their lives 20 years ago. I have those conversations, giving them permission. My assets, my wife's assets, they're ours. We can do what we wish. There's not a right or wrong answer as to who we give it to. As an attorney, I view my job as being clear and unambiguous. And that's one of the difficult things when you do it yourself, or you have a document prep person help you with it, is that often there's all kinds of ambiguity. They don't ask the follow-up questions about, well, what happens if that beneficiary dies? Who does it go to? How does it get divided? I very much view my job as making it so that it's clear where it's going and how it's going, so that after somebody dies, there's not a complication.
Right. And also, what happens if these do-it-yourselfers need to make changes to their trust?
Then they have to do it themselves again. You know, they have to find somebody else. And that's where sometimes it becomes tough, because you'll have a situation where they'll have a trust with a date in 2010, and then they do it again in 2014. And did they intend to amend that original trust and just have one, or do they now have 4 trusts? Every time they change it, they create a new one. Have they put all their assets in the right spot? Does it accomplish what they want? I frequently ask clients questions that they have not thought of on their own. And that's part of my job. You know, my job, and AmeriEstate does the same thing with their intake forms, is they ask questions that you would not have necessarily thought. And my clients will take a moment and we'll talk about it. We'll talk through the options, and then usually come up with a good response based upon what their concerns are or their situation.
And just having a place to call. Oh my gosh, it's like people don't know what they're doing. And I see these do-it-yourself trusts come in, and I look at it and I go, they're like 5 pages long. There's no powers of attorney included or a pour over will, and their houses aren't even in the trust because they don't know what to do. There's nobody to instruct them in what to do. So that's why we're here, to make sure, and also be here for the clients. Every year when they're a member of the legal plan, call us. Let's do a quick review. What have you done last year? Did you have more kids? Did you buy and sell? Did you refi your house? Did you put it back in? Let us do that. So it's just like a maintenance and being a part of the legal plan. And also you and AmeriEstate are here to make sure that people are keeping updates the way they need to be. And when the laws change, that we get those language in the trust as well.
Yeah. And let me just follow up on that. One of the ways that AmeriEstate is different is it is a legal plan, which means the members of the plan pay every year a fairly modest amount to get free amendments that year, free changes, free documents if they need them. More importantly, AmeriEstate does a really good job for a very reasonable fee that's, I think, cheaper than most attorneys, getting it done right and having an attorney plugged into that process. And I actually personally use AmeriEstate for my personal clients when they have deeds outside of Arizona, because I am smart enough to know what I don't know. And what I don't know is how to do a deed in California and not screw up Prop 13 and a whole bunch of other things that I kind of know about California, but same thing's true in every other state. So I will use AmeriEstate for my clients who have deeds all over the country, because they do a really good job. They're competent. They follow up. I've had, for approximately 20 years, nothing but really good experiences working with AmeriEstate for my personal clients and working through the process of doing trust for AmeriEstate. I very much enjoy working with the Reeses and everybody at AmeriEstate. Otherwise, I wouldn't have continued. So.
Yes, thank you very much for that, Joe. And we have so appreciated you over these 20 years. And Joe's been doing estate planning in business and other things for 30 plus years. So you have somebody you're going to be talking to who has been around the block a few times and sees the holes and things that need to be locked down. So he's got a lot of experience. And I wanted to make sure that you all knew and could actually see who you're going to be speaking to on the phone. One last thing, Joan, I know you have to leave, but the
Okay.
probate process, tell us a little bit about that in Arizona, and then we can let you go.
Okay, so the probate process, best case scenario, you can do it informally, which means you don't have to have a meeting with a judge up front, but it is a lawsuit. There's a big fat stack of documents that someone has to file to be appointed as the executor, the personal representative. It's a $300 filing fee. There's publication fees. Attorneys will charge $4, $5, $6, $7 grand flat fees to do it, or hourly. It becomes very expensive, and in almost all circumstances, it is completely avoidable just by a little bit of planning. Doing a trust is a great way to do it. It kind of ties up my assets in a bow. It has me and my partner think through what we want to do, address getting everything titled once. Once we've done that, we've done, you know, I very much view that what you're doing is you are giving a gift to your children, not just of whatever your ultimate assets are, but you're also giving them the gift of getting it organized, consciously thinking about who's going to be in charge to make it happen. Because in every family, some of the children or some of the family members are better at communication and managing these types of things than others are. And it avoids the need to go through a public probate where everybody can kind of look in and see what you're doing.
Yeah, right. Great information. Thank you so much, Joe, for joining us today.
It's my pleasure.
And everybody, I hope we might see you giving us a call or an email, and eventually get you in touch with Joe when it's time for your consultation. So have a great rest of your day, Joe. And I'm going to move on and talk about our special offer for the clients joining us today.
Perfect. Thank you. And I look forward to chatting with many of you when you're ready. Take care.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, everybody. So for the best part and for the end of the presentation, AmeriEstate, because we want to impact Arizona in a big way, we want you to tell your friends, family about AmeriEstate, your parents, if they're older, they need a trust. A great way to get started is just giving us a call. And if you have 48 hours to connect with us to receive $350 off. So if you're a single person, you get $350 off $18.95. If you're a married couple, you get $350 or $300 off. I'm sorry, $300 off $19.95. Now, each property that you have is $200, and then there's a recording fee, probably about $50 on there. But just know that 48 hours, we're going to lock you into that price. You're going to get $300 off. We're going to get you in touch with Joe, and we're going to get your estate plan within 45 days. So give us a call. The number's right here, 623-300-1591. Or in the chat, Caroline has put the what's called a landing page, a link that you can just click on that link. She put it in the chat, and click on that link and fill out some information, and we would love to talk to you and just see if a living trust would be the right fit for you. Like I said, it's not for everybody, but I think it's for most people, because most people have assets and they have, you know, maybe minor children. You have stuff going on, right? That's why we're here on earth. We're buying things, or we're selling things, or having families, or we're having businesses. That's what we do here. So we need to protect what we've worked so hard for. And I hope that you will consider AmeriEstate. You will get a follow-up video that you can actually share this with your friends and family too. Let them know they will also receive the offer, but it's got to be within 48 hours. Okay. If you don't make that 48 hours, you don't have to purchase it. You just have to get an appointment set. And let's say you decide next week you want to do it, you will get that $300 off. But after that, if you don't do it within 48 hours, we still have great pricing for you, $18.95, $19.95 plus $200 for your deeds, with everything included in your portfolio, your trust, your wills, your powers of attorney, your attorney consultation, your deed preparation and recording, your business assignments, your talk with the attorney, and your notary and delivery. What more could, that's all you need. And then we're here for you for your lifetime as well. So thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm hoping to see some of you Arizonians give us a call and get your plan started. Have a great rest of your day.